Good evening. It's 6:30 p.m. I would like to call the February 28th, 2022 Traffic Safety Commission meeting to order. We have 9 items on the agenda. Just within the call to order, just like to welcome everyone and glad to see you here to be part of citizenship and help us steer traffic safety within the city. To extend thank you to the members that are here and a bit of patience. This is my first meeting chairing the Traffic Safety Commission. I thought it'd be a good time to remind us we are given our authority by 1.52 of the municipal code. And just within the powers and duties, I'd like to read this very quickly. The commission shall investigate, advise, and report to the mayor, the council, and any other city official concerning the best methods of providing for the traffic safety and the orderly flow of traffic throughout the city. In making such recommendations, the commission shall make recommendations consistent with the Wisconsin Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. I remind the committee of that we are guided by both the ordinance and by the Wisconsin Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices and rely heavily on our engineering department and Taddy to help us understand those. So moving forward, our first point of order is the approval of the minutes. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, that motion passes. Our first discussion and action item then, our second on the agenda, is a review to request to move the no parking restriction on 9th Avenue to the other side of the street. I believe we'll start with a presentation by Max. Good evening, Max.
Good evening, thank you. This first item is because we received a request from Alderman Allen to move the existing no parking anytime restriction along 9th Avenue between Chestnut and Washington Street from the east side of the road where it exists currently, to the west side of the road where he thinks it should be. So we looked at 9th Avenue. Like I said, it's a one-way street between Chestnut and Washington Street. Parking is allowed on the west side of the street. Looking at the entire corridor, it makes sense to have no parking restriction on the same side of the street on the entire stretch because of the geometry of the street and because it's narrow. It's very likely when this was first established that it followed the no parking in front of the school that exists there, Holly Angels, and then this was spread through the whole stretch. Looking at how it is set up currently, we find that having that restriction on the east side of the street is practical for other reasons. Services that the city provides, such as garbage pickup, and therefore we recommend that making no changes to the existing no parking restriction along 9th Avenue between Chestnut Street and Washington Street.
Make a motion to make no changes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. There discussion? And well, I'm assuming a lot of people are here where our office took a lot of calls about this particular item, and I'm sure some of you would like to be heard. So at this point, we'll open up for public comment. If you'd like to come forward, please slowly state your name and your address so Megan can get it for the record. And I have a list of those that called, so if I'll check them off as you speak, and if not, I'll speak for the rest. Thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Cindy Junick, and I live on a corner house, 904 Elm Street. I'm right across from the school playground, so I see a lot of activity with the cars coming and going, and we're actually one of the wider streets of all of 9th near our house. I did look at, I agree, there is a safety issue. When we get to 9th Street between Poplar and Hickory, it's very narrow for about 2 blocks. So when I look at moving cars from one side or to the other side for that area, it's really a horse apiece because either way, it's still going to be narrow. there's only probably 4 or 5 houses that actually face 9th Avenue on those 2 blocks. The other houses that are there either face Hickory or Walnut and vice versa. They don't actually face. So I would suggest that possibly having a restriction of no parking on that narrow section. I don't know how a fire truck would be able to get through there, especially in the winter when we have the extra snow by the curb and things, and then people park a little bit further out. As far as changing the parking to the other side, which would now be the east side, I see so many children coming and going, even in the middle of winter when they want to play on the snow hill, coming and going from the basketball court or the playground. They're old enough to cross the street, but right now when they come from the playground to cross the street, they've got a real clear view all the way up, looking south down 9th Street to safely cross. And I'm worried that if we move parking to the other side, except for during the school day when of course it's restricted, regardless on our part of the block. If we move that, then on the weekends and after school, when there's so much activity at the school, that we're going to have a problem with safety with kids trying to cross the street or running out because they don't have that clear shot anymore. It's also a concern for garbage pickup. Maybe not so much during the week, but with the traffic flow the way it does with school, I just think that section of it anyway, I think all of 9th Street should stay the same, with maybe the exception of even limiting all parking on those 2 narrow blocks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Jim and Lois Sievert. We're at 218 North 9th, so we're directly across the street from Holy Angels playground right there. So as Cindy indicated, the garbage pickup, I do want to add a little bit about that. They do tend to pick up garbage very early in the morning along 9th Ave over by the school so that they can get that out of the way before people are dropping off their children for school in the morning. That time of morning, a lot of vehicles are still parked. They haven't left for work yet. So if we moved the garbage pickup to the other side of the street last year. So now if we move the parking to that side of the street on the east side, now we have cars parked, we have garbage carts parked there, and we have the garbage collection trucks not able to get to maybe all of those collection bins. So now they're having to come back, and that would cause a problem as well, I would feel, missed garbage pickup for that. I 100% agree with the children and the safety on that playground. We see it every day. Those kids, that is a very, very widely used playground off school hours. A lot of neighborhood kids use that. My grandkids go there and use it. Leaving that playground, if you parked all along on the east side, they would have to run out and try to stop and look between cars. So I really do feel that that would be one of the biggest for children. I think of the Holy Angels picnic when we used to be able to have that. Hopefully we can get back there one day. Or even during church activities. The south parking lot for Holy Angels, when that's leaving on a Sunday morning or a Saturday afternoon, if that's parked up along there, you've got people trying to exit that parking lot to go north. The north parking lot, the exit right by the building, by the apartments there, you have a lot of traffic that likes to go directly across the street onto Elm. Their vision will be impeded by having to leave the parking lot with cars parked there for church. And the same way with the north end of the parking lot as well, for the leaving of the grounds there. The other thing that came to mind for me when this was brought up a couple years ago, they had to change the parking on 10th right around the alley, which is between Cedar and Elm. There's an alley that intersects the block. They had to change the parking on 10th because when you're leaving narrow streets, when you're leaving the alley, if cars were parked there, it impeded you being able to easily get out. So they made a no parking section around the perimeter of the alley. In my mind, if you move parking to the other side of 9th as well, you'd have to do the same thing to allow traffic, I'm thinking of the garbage pickup, on Tuesday morning, letting those vehicles get out of that alley too from there. Those were the big ones, the ones that Cindy also mentioned. And then just because it is so narrow between Chestnut and Poplar, the driveways are narrow for the homes that are there. They would really have to pull forward if the traffic was parked along the east side to try to get out of their driveways. So I do feel visually that would be a impedance for them as well. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's David Young, and I live at 224 North 9th Avenue, right next to Jim and Lois. Like a couple of people have said already, we do have a very active playground there. But I also wanted to add that the YMCA runs an after-school program there and uses that playground quite often. So again, it's already, with a program there, you're already putting kids in that vicinity when you would be moving the parking over to the other side. So you are already kind of adding to that, exacerbating the issue there. I think also it's going to cause reduced vision for people exiting the upper and the lower parking lot at Holy Angels, both the one that is more on the school end and the upper end for the church. For leaving on Saturday and Sundays, obviously quite a number of cars, 10 services there. Plus, there's a small driveway that goes into the convent apartments in order for people to move furniture in and out for people that are moving, seniors that are moving into the convent apartments. And I think also the garages that Holy Angels owns there would also be affected with reduced visibility coming out if there was parking then on that side of the street. Whereas now, there's a clear vision when you're coming out of those lots in that area. The other thing too is I wonder if the new parking configuration causes problems for people who are not living in the neighborhood but attend Holy Angels and don't understand that suddenly there's been a parking change where for 20, 30 years they've been going to church at Holy Angels and all of a sudden there's cars parked where they aren't used to seeing cars. Obviously it could be overcome fairly quickly, but I wonder in the beginning, in a learning curve kind of sense, are we going to be causing more problems than it's worth? And then I didn't look at it, but you had kind of mentioned about the number of parking spaces available. I think by switching sides, you may actually reduce the amount of available spaces down in the lower 2 blocks. So it kind of seems to me to be going against the purpose of creating better parking situations. It seems like you're actually punishing those people down there, where they're a little bit more closer together. And I guess my only other issue is what's the benefit for the city? If there is a benefit for the city, then of course it needs to be considered, but I just don't know what the benefit for the city of West Bend would be to switch this. An exception, it's an exception to where you would normally park on a one-way street, but I'm not sure that it's wrong to have the exception in this case, just given the circumstances and the way that the blocks is set up. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
My name is John Butchlick, 1518 Bluebell Drive. As far as the maintenance department I work for, it's Holy Angels Maintenance Department. And when we have snow, it's going to be very difficult for me to try to blow the snow off of the areas where they pick up the kids. We normally have at least 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow when we have about 2 or 3 inches of snow. I have to get that off of that sidewalk. If we're going to park cars over on the east side in the evening, and then obviously no parking afterwards, I'm going to have a very difficult time trying to get that snow removed from that area. And when we back out of our garage, our maintenance garage faces 9th Avenue. When we back out of our garage with our pickup truck or our skid loader, we're going to have a very difficult time seeing traffic come down that from Walnut Street down to heading north. It's going to be difficult for us, and it's going to make a safety issue for us when we're getting in and out. So it's great where it is right now on the west side. We have clear vision, as well as we have an individual next to us in the garage. He's an elderly person. He's going to have a very difficult time backing out of his garage, which backs right into 9th Avenue. If there's a car parked there, he's only got about 6 or 8 feet of open area, and he's not going to be able to see it. So this moving these traffic, especially between Walnut and Washington Street, is definitely just going to create some major issues, and safety is really the number one issue I'm sure, for this committee here. So again, I just think that's going to be a really hardship for everybody, and as well as the kids. We have the Y program after school. And the Y kids, once in a while, the ball will go over on the street. Now we're going to allow traffic parking on that area after school is closed. They're going to run out into the street, and if there's parked cars there, they're not going to be able to be seen from traffic coming down. And now we put the kids' safety in effect as well. So thank you very much for hearing my concern.
Thank you, John.
Hi, Chris Walter, 907 Hickory Street. I wanted to just add a couple things. I agree with all the previous speakers thus far. Safety has been a big focus, obviously. I think Alderman Allen, one of his points was that the passenger door would be open or versus the driver's door. I mean, every vehicle has a driver, not every vehicle has a passenger. So I would completely disagree with that as a reasoning to add, switch the parking, because even children that are passengers in the back seat can always exit toward the street side, toward the curb, toward the driver's side. I would like to also add the block between Poplar and Walnut. Max, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's got to be the narrowest street in the city. Do you know of any that are?
Yeah, the one across the street from it.
It's.
I don't know about the whole city, but it is.
I mean, there's not, it's not a lot of one-way streets. This is a one-way street. It's on the exhibit. It shows 20 feet. We put a tape measure on it before coming here. It's 19.2, but it's very narrow. You got a 7-foot regular vehicle, and like people have mentioned, if you got snow on the curb, they're sticking out that much further. You got trucks with large mirrors, that type of thing. I mean, a standard fire truck is right around 9 feet. So you got an 18-foot, do the math, there's no room for a fire truck to get through there, and ambulances, it's very unsafe. I think I would request, and I know this isn't the motion or the action item, but I would request a consideration for a full closure between that block specifically, it's the one going up the hill between Poplar and Walnut, just because it is so narrow. The other stretches between Chestnut and 33 are wider in those other sections, but I think that narrow section in particular is extremely dangerous. Everyone on that street has their own driveway. Whether they choose to park in there, or not is a different story, but everyone has that opportunity. They can get vehicles off the streets. It's not that there's events down in that area that are being used like they are closer down to Holy Angels. So again, I'd like to bring that as a request for consideration. Thank you.
Hello, Joe and Linda Bremberger, 833 Walnut Street. We moved in June, and we are really surprised. Our driveway comes off onto 9th Street between Poplar and Walnut, and it's very difficult to get in and out. I don't see any benefit for moving the traffic to the other side for parking, and in fact, that was our big concern also, that there's several families with young children along the way there, and it's hard to get through no matter what side of the street you're parking on. And at some point in time, we would like to request that people would consider that there would be no parking in that block for safety. We were really wondering the other day, when the snow has occurred and people are parking a little bit further away from the curb because they can't open their door because the snow is piled up, so they're coming out a little bit further, that it's hard to even get a car through there. And we were saying if there was ever a fire or an ambulance was trying to come through, it would be really difficult. So thanks for your consideration.
Patrick O'Grady of 901 Cedar Street. I'm at the corner down there across from the school, and I'm in a position where I would be able to park on the side of the street in front of the school had the parking changes. However, that's the main flow of direction for traffic for all the drop-offs, the pickups, the school traffic. So parking on that street where it's allowed would be directly in the way of the flow of traffic. And I'd like to agree with everybody else that's commented so far and just add that moment to it.
Mark Allen, 1111 Poplar Street. I'm a District 2 alderman. I made this proposal. The primary driving force behind the proposal had to do with cars. Where cars were parking, it's not the driver that's exiting into traffic, it's the passenger. And I've personally witnessed several occasions where a door just flies open and a kid jumps out. That's not a good situation. Drivers are very aware when they're exiting their vehicle that that they need to look at the traffic. Typically, the traffic is on the driver's side. They have a mirror for that purpose. That's not necessarily the case for a passenger. And passengers generally don't think about, oh, I'm jumping out into traffic, especially young kids. And so I felt that was a serious problem. People are coming up that hill. Frequently in the wintertime, they're trying to get a little bit of speed so that they're coming up the hill and, not having to spin the wheels. It is the narrowest street, as far as I know, in the city that actually has traffic. It's slightly less than the 20 feet that's posted. I think somebody measured it at 19.6. I measured it at 19 feet. Oh, 19.2? Okay, I measured it at 19 feet at one point when I was looking at this. But after a snowstorm, not only do drivers park out so they can step out of their car and not step onto the curb or into a snowbank, but they're ending up parking so that they can actually get out of their car. That forces the cars further into the street. So I heard the suggestion maybe that should be no parking. From a safety standpoint, I'd support making those 2 blocks no parking. But it's not a normal situation to park on the curbside on a one-way street. Typically you're parking on the right-hand side as you proceed up the street. And the left-hand side is typically where the traffic moves. So, thank you for your consideration.
Hi, Allison Guzan, 833 Cedar Street. I live on the corner of 9th and Cedar, and I just want to add, I agree that parking should not be changed. Also, if you would need to change parking to the opposite side of the street, all the stop signs would need to be changed. We have a very dangerous intersection. People don't stop at our stop sign to begin with. If you're going to start switching up the traffic pattern that's going to be there, I'm concerned that more people that drive through there from Holy Angels or other places are not going to be aware of that new change, and more accidents are going to occur at that intersection. Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment? Doug?
So I know some of this was in your report, but I just wanted to touch base on it. Obviously, these one-way streets are, Doug Newman, Public Works Director, thank you. These one-way streets are a little unique. So on 9th Avenue, obviously all the garbage carts have to be placed on the east side because of our truck, our new equipment. In the years past, when we had the 2-man truck, it didn't matter because the driver or the operator on the back would pick it from either side. So I think it was about a year ago or a little better than that, we did contact all the residents and implement that rule of placement for our collection. I know a lot of people in the audience may not agree with me, but in the DPW's perspective, no parking in the winter on these streets would be our preference, because as you heard and you see in the report, the streets are 20-foot wide or 19-foot wide. When you have a 7-foot wide vehicle and a 12-foot wide snowplow, it doesn't work. It's very, very difficult on these streets. I know that's not before you tonight, but I just wanted to mention that we've had to drive down these streets and try to back out because we cannot get through. And as the winter goes on, the cars come farther and farther away from the curb. It makes it very, very difficult for just our plow trucks, not to mention the emergency vehicles that have to get down there as well. So just a few comments I wanted to add to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else? We spoke to several other citizens that I promised I would speak on their behalf if they couldn't make the meeting. We spoke to Principal Ann Weiss from Holy Angels, very much against moving the parking for many of the reasons you said. 9th Avenue is used for the pickup and drop-off at the school. Playground is on 9th Avenue. Having people park directly in front raises safety concerns. We spoke to Tommy Eisenhower, 336 South 9th, against moving the parking. Garbage pickup is placed on that side of the street. Also worried about navigating the turn at Chestnut and 9th and safety concerns. Jenny Nagel of 302 South 9th contacted our office, is against the move. There's limited parking as it is. It would not be convenient to park across the street and have to worry about crossing a busy roadway with 5 children, groceries, and et cetera. Worried about the snow-covered slippery roads. Lisa Shabarno, 218 South 9th, concerned of the issues it would make for Holy Angels. Parking is fine the way it is. And finally, Sarah Ruiz of 328 South 9th Avenue also had concerns and wanted the parking to remain as is. She had also concerns about Chestnut and 9th, safety in the area, and the garbage pickup. Anyone else, as we close out our discussion? Any board, commission members for discussion? I'll make a quick editorial. I'll make a quick editorial. I think it's extremely admirable that this room is filled with people who are concerned about the safety in their community and their neighborhood. And I thank you for taking the time to come here. I thank Alderman Allen for bringing this forward with truly his concern is the safety of the citizens in the community. So this is how our process works, is you came, you helped us to make our decision tonight. So thank you for that, and I think you're all wonderful citizens. We have a motion and a second on the board to have parking remain on the west side of 9th Avenue. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion passes to not make any changes on 9th Avenue. Thank you. Our next agenda item is a review to review a request to install an autistic child sign near 1606 Eder Lane. Max.
Thank you again. Like you said, this request came from a resident on Eder Lane to put an autistic sign in their neighborhood because she's concerned with her son, basically, who was diagnosed, and she would like the sign to alert drivers. Now, the city of West Bend does not have a local policy in place to address this type of request. And however, looking into the state policies, which we usually default to when we don't have a local rule, we found that they had a study done in 2007 on the efficiency of such signs. And based on documentation that they found in several communities in the state and outside the state throughout the country, they developed the state policy for child crossing signs and basically recommend against putting up such signs. And in their policy, they would remove existing signs as they would go, for example, and reconstruct the road or do work in this area. So based on all that information that we found, staff would recommend the city follow the DOT policy and not install an autistic sign, autistic child sign as requested.
Thank you, Max. I note on the DOT's Transportation Synthesis Report, a pretty clear summary. And I know you provided that to us, but the saying, these signs do not give clear and enforceable guidance to drivers, provide a false sense of security to parents and children that may increase risk, expose the government body to liability, and give the false impression that areas without such signs do not have children. I appreciate you bringing that forward, and one of the reasons I read our charter to begin with is that we are to make such recommendations consistent with the Wisconsin Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. I'll entertain a motion to install autistic child sign at 1606 Eder Lane.
I'll make a motion to go along with the city recommendation of no sign installed.
So basically, you said you're going to deny the request to install a sign? Was that the motion?
Yes.
I second that.
Excuse me, why?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now we'll have discussion. So if you'd like to step to the mic, please, state your name and address, and you certainly have a chance to speak.
Yes, I am the resident at that address at 1606 Eder Lane. My name is Brittany Lentz. I'm the concerned mother for Liam Lentz. He's three years old. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I just don't feel safe in the front, or in the, sorry, bass stuck. My family and I don't feel safe.
Take a breath and take a moment to compose yourself. We're here to listen to you.
Thank you for your time. My family and I don't feel safe playing or whatnot in the front yard of my house, 1606 Eder Lane. We have a backyard and it's fenced in with the dog. My daughter Brielle and Liam Lentz are my kids, obviously, and there's a lot of traffic on that road. I am on the corner of Mapledale, or Maplewin, on that street, the corner, and the cars just drive by, so without any consideration, so. And Liam likes to run, he's getting better. I just feel that an autistic sign would benefit our family and this and the kids around the neighborhood would benefit as well. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments?
First of all, thanks for coming. And the only reason I made the motion to go against is looking at Max's report and all of the studies that have done. Everything I have read here says the signs do absolutely nothing. I understand your position. And if there was evidence that these signs worked, I would be all for putting a sign up. But everything that I see here points to not doing anything to make anybody aware. I don't know if there's any other recommendation or how you make somebody aware of that situation, but that's the reason I had voted to deny it. Not because I don't think there may be a need, but I don't think I see any evidence that the sign will actually help your situation. So.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, hearing Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And that motion passed to deny the installation of an autistic sign at 1606 Eder Lane.
I can make one more comment, Tim. If you're having a problem with traffic and speeding or whatever, I urge you to contact the police department. I'm sure they do anything they can to help you with that.
Yep, perhaps you could. Yep, come on forward, ma'am. Come forward so we can hear you.
We do have a ring system to see what happens in our front door, and you can see drivers just drive by and they don't care anything about the pedestrians, cars, kids. So if I did bring the footage up, you can plainly see they just zoom by. So that's another reason I wanted to come as well. So.
Thank you, and I'm actually going to direct our Captain Rollinger, to have a chat with you, and we'll get some special attention in the area to provide some extra enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item is to review a request to install a stop sign on Forge Place at River Road. Max?
Thank you again. Yes, the city of West Bend created a TIF district on the south side of the city to develop a new industrial park to respond for a demand for medium to large scale industrial sites. And the first phase of the development was to build Forge Place. So it is constructed right now, but it's not open to traffic yet. And then at the intersection with River Road, we looked at the warrants for a stop sign installation. And the first warrant on that list is met. And looking at the street across from Forge Place, which is Railway, where we do have a stop sign, for the same reason, we recommend installing a stop sign at Forge Place at its intersection with River Road, which Doug will take care of as soon as you approve, if you approve, or if council approves after you recommend. Thank you.
Before we make a motion, there's already a stop sign there.
Oh.
I looked twice today.
Did
The
you
sign's
install a
already
stop
up.
sign?
I'm like, we're making a motion. The sign is already there. So,
Well, it's not an official sign until you have recommended and council
right on
has
the Forge
approved.
Place sign, I'm like, all right, I gotta go back. because
And
maybe
since
I'm
there's
seeing
no
things.
traffic, I guess it doesn't hurt anything. But we would like the stop sign there when traffic starts.
Okay, I'll make a motion to install the sign that's there. Maybe we just gotta move it to the right height or something, but there is one in place.
Thank you.
Just a point of order, in order for it to be an enforceable sign, it has to be in the traffic manual, which is what, part of our process here tonight. So I have a motion, looking for a second from Boyd. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes to bless the install of the currently existing stop sign at Forge Place and River Road and place it in the traffic manual. Thank you. Our next item is a review of a request to install a stop sign on Sumac Drive at Lee Avenue. Max.
Thank you again. We received a request from a resident to install stop signs on Sumac Drive at its intersection with Lee Avenue. This is a four-leg uncontrolled intersection in a residential neighborhood. And so we looked at the guidance in the manual on uniform traffic control devices to see if stop sign was required there. We did a site visit as well as part of that the analysis in that study, and we found that the intersection does not meet any of the warrants. And based on all this research, we recommend to make no changes to the traffic control at this intersection.
Thank you, Max. Is there anyone here that would like, I'll entertain a motion first, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Tom. Second by Randy. Discussion? Go ahead, sir, come on up. Again, please state your name and your address for the record.
And thanks for hearing the idea. I'm Corey Faust, 1441 Lee Avenue, as well speaking for a neighbor of Gerald and Dina Bestel at 1440 Lee Avenue. I'll start with their statement too. They're unable to make it, but they wanted me to share, if you don't mind. I'll just read it word for word. We often yield when driving, and recently taught our 17-year-old son to do the same when coming down the intersection. It is down a hill, as well as Sumac is down a hill, and it being an uncontrolled intersection, it's difficult to see cars coming to meet at that intersection. It's not a 90-degree intersection, so it's kind of difficult to see. There's a house that impedes visual before, it doesn't allow you to see the cars that are coming from the Sumac, and we've gotten a few close calls in the 3 years that we've lived there. A few others, including my neighbors, have discussed it. Thus, she made the motion to do something in 2020. She didn't hear back, so thus I followed up and tried to make one, obviously, today. So and thank you for hearing it out. Have a great day.
Thank you. Please.
Linda Granick, 1174 Auburn Road. We've only been in the area for about 3 years. I will not drive down Lee. When we first moved into the area, we came from an area that there were stop signs at the corners. If one road was more prevalent than another, that road had the right of way. We had a couple close calls where we were almost hit. Somebody was zooming through Sumac, never stopped. If we would have been 5 seconds earlier, I don't know if my daughter would be here because he would have plowed right into her. So we go down Auburn to Firehorn and we just go down that way. But when we have friends and relatives and things that come over, they're not familiar with that. Other people that come in our neighborhood, they're not familiar with thinking that that road will intersect and that no one's going to stop, and like he stated, there's homes on all four corners. So to see a car coming, if you're going down Lee, it's a larger home, you're pretty close before you realize that there's a car coming and that you need to slow down. So I would like to hope and pray that the board does decide to put a stop sign on Sumac. If not a stop sign, maybe just a yield sign. The rest of the neighborhood seems like if you're going, you kind of have to slow down because you're making a turn. It seems like Sumac and Lee would be the only streets that really, if you're going to turn from Sumac onto Lee, yes, you'd slow down. But if you're going straight through and you're going to pick up the other street, you're not going to slow down. So I hope you can change your mind. I know there's only the two of us and it is a big neighborhood, but I hope that will kind of persuade you to, if not put a stop sign in there, at least put a yield sign in to slow things down a little bit or just make a little bit safer area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And it's not just the two of you, it's two of you. So thank you for that, for coming here and talking to us. I'm sorry, any other comments? We took 3 other calls, one from a Joel Kiso at 1410. He was in favor of installing stop signs on Sumac. One from Adam and Christy Tapp at 1428 Lee Avenue. They were also in favor of installing stop signs on Sumac, stating traffic goes quite fast on Lee and Sumac Drive. And a Renee Gilo, 909 Auburn, was in favor of stop signs being installed. Any other discussion? Max, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but could you maybe give us a quick primer and the effectiveness of yield signs?
So I will start by saying that putting up stop signs or yield sign to control speed is not the answer. Like guidance from the MUTCD is very clear about that. There are countless studies that have been done, and this is not how we control speed. Now, if there's a speeding issue in the area, that is something that requires a different solution. So the speed limit on those streets is 25 miles per hour. I drove those streets, the speed limit, and I went to each leg of the intersections. I took pictures at the areas where you approach the intersection to see. I was looking for trees and bushes and other obstructions due to the geometry of the street, as I explained, and as you can see on my pictures. I believe the stop signs are not required for the existing site. If the concern is speed again, that needs to have a different remedy. So even with the yield signs, I don't know that would make things better.
Thank you, Max. I noted your third point that you pointed out was crash records are to be looked at, and over the 5-year period, there were no vehicle crashes at that intersection. That's a significant finding as well.
Yes.
I'm on a roll, so I'll keep going. But as we all know, the 3 E's of traffic safety are engineering, education, and enforcement. And so I agree with your comments that those signs aren't useful for slowing speed, or shouldn't be used for slowing speed, or we negate the power of the sign. So again, sign Captain Rollinger again to, we'll start a special attention in the area to provide some extra attention for speed enforcement in that area as well, no matter the outcome of the request tonight. Any other discussion?
So Chief, other than obvious presence of law enforcement there, what are some deterrents of speed? Because I've actually Corey, my sister-in-law is Corey's neighbor, so I've come down that, going up front of that, coming down. I understand the request.
Because I don't think either intersections know who has the right of way. I don't know if Sumac thinks Lee will stop, and I don't know if Lee thinks that Sumac's going to stop, and neither of them stop. And if you just happen to hit the right time, thank God no one has been killed, but we'd like to avoid that.
Yeah, in a situation where there's no control at the intersection, the right-of-way is not given to one street over the other. It's determined by the general rule of the road, which indicates that any vehicle that approaches an intersection shall yield to the vehicle to the right. So that's how it works for uncontrolled intersections. So no matter which leg of the intersection you're on, you should first look at the vehicles that are coming from your right and yield to those vehicles. So that's the rule that would apply there. I don't know if a reminder of the speed limit, that would be installing other signs on those roads, would help the situation and would help people pull their foot off the accelerator. But yeah, if it's a speed issue, we can talk about it. I know you said you're going to do it on site and do some education. But I can take a second look if you want me to and see if there is any sources that show that adding a reminder of what the speed limit is would help with that.
So I'll look for some direction from the commission. Sounds like this one we maybe have some discussion on. Asking Max to study it further.
Well, yeah, just having the concern for speed with families there, I think, if there is no one, stop shop for deterrent of speed, I guess that if we could take a look at it, I think it'd be a good thing. Max, thank you.
I would withdraw my motion and ask that Max do just a little bit further study and present at the next meeting. To further study this and see if there's if we have to reduce speed or if we have to remind speed. That was what we just discussed, is maybe there's something else that can be done here to alleviate that. So I would withdraw my motion and ask that Max study this further for next time we meet.
I guess my only comment would be the speed limit is 25 already, so I don't think reduction in speed is an option for us. I guess Max is maybe talking increased signage. Yeah, road construction and choke points are things we talk about. That's not an option. It's an existing roadway. So we can certainly honor that and have Max take another look, but I'll just be honest, I don't know that the answer is going to be any different. It might just be asking for more work. It might be something for us to vote on, but that's the direction the commission wants. If we want to have Max take another look, we certainly can do that. Any interest in that?
Or somebody else can make a motion. Now that I withdrew mine.
So I'll entertain a motion, a new motion, I guess. I'll entertain a new motion regarding the request to install a stop sign at Sumac and Lee.
If there is no motion, nothing happens.
One more time, I'll ask for a motion to install a stop sign at Sumac Drive and Lee Avenue. Okay, hearing no motion, then that request fails for lack of a motion. We'll move on to the...
One more request, can we ask him to please come during like the busy times of the day when all the kids are trying to go to school and all of us parents are trying to get our kids to school, and vice versa at night when it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and everybody's trying to come home. That intersection is a lot busier. I don't know when he came, but if he could just maybe take a gander at during that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I got the 4 o'clock. What was the time in the morning?
Just in the morning, when everyone's trying to get their
Like, is it 7, 7:30?
I'm going through the area at like 7, it's not that busy yet, I've got a high schooler, but I think when all the elementaries, there's a lot of younger kids in our neighborhood, so they're all trying to get to the elementary schools, they start like 8:15, 8:20, so maybe like 7:45, and then I know in the evening, when we come home about 3 o'clock, it's very busy in the neighborhood, so 3, 4, into there, there's a lot of traffic, school buses, parents.
Okay, 7:45 a.m. and between 3 and 4 p.m.
Somewhere in that area. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Before you leave, Captain, did you get those times? So we'll run some special assignment enforcement, extra squads in the area to make sure we're enforcing, working on the enforcement level of those 3 E's during those times. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Our next request is review a request to replace a yield sign with stop signs at Acorn Road at Parkfield Drive.
Thank you again. This intersection is also a 4-lane intersection, and there are currently yield signs on Acorn Road at the intersection with Parkfield Drive. So we looked at the guidance for installation of stop signs, and based on our analysis and based on the data from the police department with crash records and everything, we found that stop signs are not warranted at that intersection. However, it's possible that yield signs were installed based on the existing warrants in the MUTCD, based on the first one. And at this time, our recommendation is to let the yield signs remain and not replace them with stop signs.
Motion to leave as is.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to have the area stay as is with yield signs and a second. Any public comment? We had one gentleman, Harold Steep from 317 Acorn Road, send in a well-crafted letter. He's lived in the area for 20 years, has a clear view of the intersection. He's more concerned with speed than he is the intersection itself, where the problem, use caution in regard to the yield sign. That being said, he'd like to say that people who are requesting stop signs should be made aware of the real problem. His estimation, the problem is Parkfield Drive, which has the majority of traffic, and the people that use it to travel north and south without regard for the speed limits or caution at intersection. Acorn is only 2 blocks long, separated by Parkfield Drive. Let's put stop signs where they will do the most good, and that is on Parkfield Drive to slow traffic. Please consider what I've suggested and study the problem before making a decision. That will remind us of the conversation we just had with Max.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That request passes to have Acorn Road at Parkfield Drive remain yield signs. Next agenda item is a request for no parking on North Main Street, just north of State Highway 33. Max.
Thank you again. So this request came from our Department of Public Works, and it's linked to the new development that's happening at the northeast corner of Washington Street and North Main Street. Our Department of Public Works indicated that prior to this development, they have not had problems with snow removal because of the use that was made of the area. Usually had no overnight parking in the street. However, with this new development, heavy residential development, we anticipate that we would have potentially several vehicles parked overnight on that side of Main Street, on the east side of Main Street. So the first thing we looked at was the existing city ordinance about winter parking regulations, where we would alternate parking on odd nights and even nights to allow Public Works to clean the street over a couple of nights. However, in this location, there is no parking anytime regulation on the opposite side of the street, so people would not be to alternate and go to the other side while Public Works would clean the side where they were parked the night before. Therefore, we are proposing to use the system that we've used in other streets that are similar to this one, where we would have a winter parking restriction between December 1st and April 1st for the area that is described in your memo in front of the new proposed development.
So just to be clear, what you're recommending is just no parking there during the winter months. The rest of the time, they'd be able to park on that side like they currently
Yes,
do.
and it's only between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. All those nights.
I'll move to approve that request.
Second.
So we have a motion, and just to be clear, Alderman Kaler, your motion is to approve no parking from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. from December 1st through April 1st along the east side of Main Street, and as described by Max, which is approximately 250 feet to approximately 1,060 feet north of the center line of Washington Street.
Yes,
Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And a second by Mr. Pesch. Any comment, public comment? Any comment from discussion, rather? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that request passes. Thank you, Max. And our final item is a discussion, a discussion regarding the traffic signal timing along the Main Street corridor.
Thank you again. So this item is following a study done by Traffic Analysis and Design, Inc. For the city of West Bend on the corridor, on the Main Street corridor for existing traffic signals. So they looked at the existing traffic patterns. They did traffic counts, traffic turning movement counts, and they looked at the timing programs that we have in the signals currently and analyze if those are appropriate given the traffic patterns that we have currently, and if not, how they should be modified to improve traffic in this area. So they presented their report. They have generated adjustment to the signal timings, and they're proposing that, or they're recommending that the city install these new programs in the signals in order to improve traffic. So we bring this item to the Safety Commission to see if you have any comments, questions, and otherwise we're planning on implementing those timings in the signals very soon. And I forgot to say, I have Michael May from TADI in the room to answer any questions because it gets a little technical.
Thank you, Max. I'll turn it over to the commission for questions.
I've got questions about the off-peak timing. Yes. And maybe it's my advanced age because I talk to a lot of other older drivers who are never out there during the peak hours and complain routinely about lack of coordination from one intersection to the next during the off-peak hours. So could you address how many timing plans we use per day?
Sure.
And also if they're different on Saturdays than off-peak hours during the week?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We're actually going to have 5 different timing plans. So during the late night hours, 4 of the signals are currently, I believe it's by ordinance, required to flash at night. So we're going to maintain that flash from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And those are the 4 northernmost intersections. Then we're going to operate the intersection what's called free for about half an hour, just get the signal up and running. I mean, it could jump right into coordination right away, but there's no purpose to do that until about 6:30 in the morning. 6:30 in the morning till about 7 o'clock in the morning, we're going to run one plan. From 6:30 until 9 a.m., we have one just for the morning rush hour. We're going to have another plan between 9 a.m. and 11 o'clock. That's sort of the off-peak. So we will be coordinating the northern 4 signals during that time, and I'll come back to that in just a second. Then we have another plan for lunch that will run till about 2:30. And then from 2:30 to 7 o'clock at night, it's going to run. That's the 4th plan now. And then it's going to go back to its off-peak plan and finally, flash and everything again at night. And then we have a separate plan for the weekend. So during the off-peak, the reason all 6 of the intersections will not be coordinated is right now Paradise Drive runs 55 seconds during the off-peak. And it doesn't make sense. Well, first of all, we can't coordinate that with Paradise and with Maine unless we went with a really high cycle length of 110 seconds there. It just seemed that the traffic operational flow, for the entire corridor made more sense that during that time, just the northern 4 intersections were in coordination. Maine and Paradise was out of that coordination plan, and then whenever Maine and Paradise is out, the intersection to the south, Humar would also be out of coordination. I just covered a lot of ground really fast there, but does that help answer some of your questions? We will still have coordination in the off-peaks for the northern 4 intersections, and Paradise will have its coordination plan for west of Maine and Maine and Paradise, but at Maine and Paradise itself, we can't accommodate a cycle length that small, and if we increase it too high, the queues back up too far. So that was the thinking there.
I think I've followed everything that you've said so far, but could you explain?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, amazing. But could you explain how much that differs from the current plan?
Sure.
Like what were the main areas that we were trying to improve, and how does this do that?
Yeah, so the main things we're trying to improve are a couple of things. One, I have it retimed, it hasn't been put in yet, all our yellows and all reds. Our yellows and all reds were timed previously to exactly the speed limit. We are now timing them to 7 miles an hour over the speed limit.
And you would think that that encourages speeding. That's not the purpose at all. The purpose of that is to make sure no one gets stuck in the intersection when a counterflow goes. So it's a crash reduction thing. But for the actual coordination of the signals themselves, we're still doing it to the speed limit. So if you go too fast, you're going to stop. But if you go the speed limit, green, green, green. So we're trying to promote speed control. But right now, the Saturday peak hour is not coordinated very well on Paradise or on Main. So we're bringing them all into the same cycle length. So it makes it actually easier for flow on both corridors. During I'm trying to remember here, I think it was the lunch hour was not coordinated before. We're going to be coordinating that better now with Main and Paradise. So the main benefits that we're looking at here are really the yellows and all reds are going to be safer. The walks and flash and don't walks should be safer. It promotes, again, driving the speed limit, things like that.
I got a question, and
Yeah.
maybe it's just the way I drive, which is possible. But it seems to me the more different cycles we get, the more confusing. And I'll use Main and 33 as my example because it's the one I get all the time.
Yeah.
Heading south, one time you get there, you get a green arrow. Next time you get there, you don't get a green arrow. Next time you do, you get a green arrow. It's like drivers, at least me, I come to expect, okay, when that turns red, I get a green arrow. And I catch myself all the time with my foot on the gas going, whoa, stop. I don't have the green arrow this time. So just to me, the more cycles we get and the more different changes here, to me, just confuses people. You start to rely on that light turning, and it doesn't turn. So,
It's
just my
interesting.
2 cents.
It's interesting you bring that up because I noticed the same thing happens at Main and Paradise right now. If you're coming from the south on Humar, half the time I was watching half the time the traffic gets there in time to make the left turn arrow come on, and the other half it's getting there too late. And so people are then waiting an extended period of time. So we're trying to correct that, especially at Main and Paradise. The only other signal on the corridor here that has left turns that we're going to operate is at Decorah. And so that really has to do with the arrivals of traffic and when it gets there. If you get there too late, it's not going to come on. But we've got it timed where they should be coming on before you get there.
Drive faster again.
No.
I'm getting there too late.
I did want to point out one of the bigger changes you may see is down at Humar. When that signal was designed, and if you look at an aerial view of the intersection, you probably know the intersection is offset. Right now, northbound and southbound, the left turn arrows come on at the same time, but two vehicles cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So if you would happen to have a northbound truck with a southbound truck, for example, they would cross in the intersection. There's a conflict. And so what we're suggesting doing is intentionally having that northbound left turn come on after the southbound through traffic has already gone through. And that's to keep vehicles, again, from trying to occupy the same space in the middle of the intersection.
Which intersection was that you're referring to?
Yeah, Humar, it's the one just south of Main and Paradise.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the bigger change that you'll see. One other thing that we want to do is when we're out there with TAPCO, there's a setting in the controller where all coordinated movements are your main line. All coordinated movements will automatically bring up a walk and flashing don't walk every cycle. And in doing so with this particular setting, if the amount of walk and flashing don't walk added together is less than the amount of time we've programmed, it will automatically extend the walk for a longer period of time. And the reason we're making that recommendation is it makes it easier for the pedestrians. They don't get there, sit there, push the button, watching a green light, and they're waiting. This will allow the signal to keep the walk on to service those pedestrians, and it'll keep it on longer than normal. So that's the other big change I wanted to point out.
I routinely drive on Paradise Drive from east to west.
Yeah.
And I often get stopped at a red light at Main Street, and that's not a concern of mine. That's understandable.
Yeah.
But once I get to green, I am routinely stopped at the first block to the west at 7th Avenue and hit another red light. So is there coordination between the signal at Paradise and Main and the signal at Paradise and 7th?
There wasn't before. We're adding it back in. There was
Part of
coordination.
this- As part of this motion, or?
Yep, with the timings we have, that's actually one of the things we looked at is, I asked Max right at the end, I said, Max, send me the timings you got for Paradise, because I think I can do something here. And I noticed that the timings for Paradise run at like 85 seconds during certain periods of the day, and Main and Paradise was running at 90 seconds. So they had coordination timings, but they weren't synced at all. So some of the times you might have gotten through on green and some of the times you might have missed it. We're correcting that with this. We're bringing it all to the same cycle length.
And this is slightly off the subject from the actual motion here, or the subject here, but it's the new signal we put in on Washington Street at Shanehar.
Yeah.
I routinely have to stop at Shanehar, and I again have to stop at River Road, as if there's no coordination, no green band between those two intersections.
Oh.
And also, it sure appears to me, and these again are always off-peak hours. I never go there at 5 in the afternoon. But there's often routinely a green arrow comes up for a red light when I'm going eastbound on Washington or
Okay.
westbound. And there's absolutely no traffic on Shanehar. Is there a traffic actuation to that signal at all for Shanehar Road?
Yeah, as I say, I think Max might handle that one better than me. I apologize.
No, that's fine. So Mike doesn't know the history. So that signal was installed due to the Quick Trip development.
Yes, it was.
So their numbers were showing the increase in traffic volumes and the need for the signal to improve the movements there. What happened is that they ordered the signals, the poles for the signals and everything, and it was supposed to be delivered in November, and it's still not delivered. So what we have out there are temporary signals, and they do not have the detection. We would have cameras that would detect the vehicles on the road. So we do not have the detection. We do not have all the elements that we need to make or to install those timings as they should be to optimize the traffic through the intersection. Right now, the timings in there are just rigid. They're not fluid, and therefore we're going to have some issues here and there. But once those poles are installed and all the equipment with it, there will be a new timing in the cabinets, in the controllers in the cabinets, and then we'll have more fluid traffic. So a little bit more patience.
When is that going to happen?
So we were told it's going to happen next month in March.
Okay, I'm going to just do a quick point of order.
Yes.
And I let it go long enough because we got our answer. But now I'll direct us back to our discussion was on the Main Street corridor, but we got our answer. And maybe our next Traffic Safety Commission, we can get an update on that. That could be on the agenda, because there might be some other folks that would want to know about that. But so what I heard was it's a temporary situation based on probably, I'm going to guess something like supply chain.
Yes.
And it's temporary and will be fixed, but because I know Megan is going to keep me on the task with our parliamentary orders.
I have a question. How much, or do the fire and rescue do anything to the cycles?
Yeah, so I believe what you're referring to is what's called emergency vehicle preemption. Firefighters, or I'm not sure if the police department here has that ability in their vehicles for EVP, okay? And it kicks the signal out of coordination to serve those vehicles, and then the signal takes a while to get back. It usually takes about 2 to 3 cycles for a signal to get back into coordination again. And that's just because it really depends on when that fire engine approaches. Is it approaching also with an ambulance? Things like that. It can take, the the controller is set to manually calculate and slowly get itself back into sync. It's slow, but it tries doing it as fast as it can, but it ends up being a little bit slow. So it can take a few cycles after a fire engine's gone through for it to sync back in.
It's just a comment. First of all, thank you for, I mean, this is crazy stuff here when you look at all the different timing cycles and all the different factors that play in. So thank you for your work, and thank you to Max tonight for everything that was on this agenda. Obviously, you guys put a lot of work into looking at different codes and enforcements and all that. So thank you both for all you did for tonight's agenda.
Chief, if I may. Please. I just want to say that usually when we input the traffic signal times, we'll be out there with TAPCO to do the work. And after things are running, of course, we don't leave our municipalities behind. So if for some reason something comes up and gee, it's just not operating the way we want, Max has my number, and we have come out to help make adjustments. So just want to put that out there as well.
Excuse me, could you just reiterate what you were mentioning about taking some of the knowledge and logic that we reviewed on Main Street, North and South, and applying that to Paradise?
Yeah.
What are you able to do or not able to do there?
Yeah, so right now what's happening is I can't remember the exact hours. I didn't print out the whole report because most of it's appendix support material. But there's certain times of day where Paradise is running, let's say, an 85-second cycle length. So, and what you're trying to do with this coordination is each signal runs in its two clocks. One is it has the time of day, and one tells it where it should be in position with the other signals. That clock that's telling it to be in position with other signals is 85 seconds all the way around, right? But Main and Paradise right now is at 90 seconds going around and around. So what happens is half the time you're going to be wildly off of coordination. Half the time you might be a little bit closer to coordination. What we're doing is we're making the cycle lengths so they jive with Paradise and they jive with Main. So I didn't actually touch any of the timings on Paradise itself off to the west. I'm just touching Main and Paradise in a way that we can improve traffic on Paradise and Main at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up, with all due respect, it was 180 beautiful pages of logic about North Main Street. Yeah. But all I could think of when I got that and looked at it was my last trip down Paradise, when I swear, I don't know how many signals there are, but from West Bend Mutual to get to Pick and Save.
There's a few.
I think if there are 6, I got stopped 5 times. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. We're reviewing Main Street. We should scrap that and talk about Paradise.
And we haven't timed Paradise before, or at least I don't have a recollection of doing it here at Taddy. I think that another firm does it, and I would never poo-poo their work. I think there's a lot of different issues on Paradise that make it more difficult to keep that coordinate. A lot of left turn arrows, you got the ramps, a lot of things that make it difficult on Paradise. Yep.
Any other discussion? Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good, you can stay here by yourself then. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Just a note with Taddy, Mike said they'll never leave us behind. They did make a donation to the beach house renovation at Regner Park, so thank you to them.
And when it came to adjournment, my favorite line, the eyes are above the nose. I just love that line.
That's the one, huh? Okay. I will have them put a discussion. Just so we keep it front of mind.
I got the